Well, we've got some convection over the Pacific Northwest. There's a mixture of sunshine, clouds, and smoke. And today we started our heating trend. Hey everyone, good evening. I'm meteorologist Darrell Winninger, and across the high desert, our temperatures were running a little above average for this time of the year. And the smoke hasn't really been impacting air quality too much. It's been good to moderate for the hourly average through most of the day. But tonight that starts to change. By tomorrow, our temperatures continue to change. And by Wednesday, we're throwing a wrench in the whole darn thing, and it's almost getting an entire reset across the Pacific Northwest. So it is time for a deep dive into your most reliable forecast for Central Oregon. We're going to look at some of the changes we've already seen since this weekend, since yesterday, what happens next, and how that really impacts our forecast and our conditions as we go forward through the rest of this work week. It's going to be fun, a lot to talk about. Let's start off with what we're seeing in this graphic right here. This is enhanced infrared satellite imagery and pressure. All the white lines across the map, those are all isobars, and they're constant lines of pressure, and they help us identify where there's low pressure, where there's high pressure. Exhibit A, there is a low pressure over the Gulf of Alaska, and to the east of that, a weak front. There's another low pressure that's just offshore. Those are acting in concert with each other, and it's pumping a lot of moisture into the Pacific Northwest, but over Central Oregon, we haven't seen much more other than some clouds. But as we go forward, we're going to be turning our attention more to that system that's out over the Pacific Ocean. As high pressure flattens for the Pacific Northwest, this next system is going to bring a shift in our weather pattern. So more heat is in the planner before we start to cool down. And the cooling trend technically begins on Wednesday, but we really don't see the influences of it until we get to Thursday and Friday. Outside of that, tomorrow is going to be the hottest day out of the next 7, and then that Pacific low pressure system really starts to change up our weather pattern, and it's not until late this week that we start to get that next cooling trend. So right here, right now across Central Oregon, we have that mixture of sunshine, clouds, and a little bit of smoke. Not really impacting our air quality too much at the moment. We'll talk about that here through the next couple of minutes. But when we look at a couple of other cameras, specifically looking at some of those fire detection cameras that get the 360 view, and we just show what they have the camera set to for us, and it really shows that partly cloudy conditions are mostly what we're seeing across the high desert. Meanwhile, as we go forward through the next couple of days, we're still looking at even more sunshine, but also some of this impact from the smoke. Some of this air quality impact is still going to be an issue as we go forward through the next couple of days. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of those air quality conditions as of right now. Starting off with what it looks like at the moment. I just loaded 3 new graphics in. We're going to start off with one that shows 2 different networks. This one shows the DEQ's hourly average, courtesy of airnow.gov, as well as eSpace Labs. They have a network of several different sensors spread across Central Oregon and other parts of the state. You can actually see some near La Grande when you look up in the top right corner of this map as well. But most of what we've been seeing, good to moderate air quality. There have been times of just green for all 3 of our tri-county area, all 3 counties of Central Oregon. But as of right now, it's just parts of Jefferson County that have moderate air quality for the hourly average for real-time sensors. That Madras sensor is showing unhealthy for sensitive groups. And if that it'll make it a little bit more sense when we actually back up one graphic and look at some of these cameras again. So that Lake Billy Chinook camera, Madras is behind the camera and a little bit to the right. So a little bit to the northeast of where this camera is, and that's where we have that unhealthy for sensitive groups air quality, and we could actually we have reduced visibility in that area. Now, when it comes to what we've seen through the day, starting at 7 a.m., we really didn't see air quality dip too much through the early morning hours, and then through the day, we actually had quite a bit of improvement, and as of right now, that hourly average is good with a little bit of Jefferson County at that moderate range. And when it comes to our weather alerts, there are not any that are currently active for Central Oregon, but there is a series of red flag warnings for Southeast Oregon and Southwest Oregon, and those all end at 8 p.m. this evening. And it's mostly because of critically dry conditions and winds that are getting gusty, but in Southeast Oregon, there is a risk of thunderstorm activity. In fact, you don't even really see many of the thunderstorms till you go a little further to the south, over North California, getting into Lakeview, and then over north Nevada getting in to southern Harney and Malheur County, as well as a little bit of Lake County. That's where there have been some cells capable of producing lightning, and most of that has been staying well to the south of Burns. But we're continuing to track it because any lightning strikes can cause fire, especially when you have such critically dry conditions. And that brings us to water vapor imagery. Also looking at pressure on this one as well. But water vapor imagery is similar to the infrared imagery that we use from satellites that are in geosynchronous orbit. But this specifically shows where there's abundant moisture in the atmosphere or where there's moisture-starved area. And you can tell that because of the colors on the map. Where you're seeing the yellows, and if we zoom out even more, there are pockets where it's orange and red. That's where it's like just critically, a very dry air mass. And for Central Oregon, we've had this dry air mass in place since earlier this weekend and late last week even. But the dry air mass in the lower elevations continues. We just have a little bit of cloud cover, and those clouds aren't producing any precipitation just yet. But we are going to continue to track it. I don't think much at all in the way of rain is expected. Even south of Burns, what we do see on radar is coming down as sprinkles in some locations, others not getting wet at all. Meanwhile, there's another way that we could look at moisture, and that is relative humidity. And when you get down to the teens and even single digits, it's just critically dry. There are a couple 20s on the map. Remember, all of these are actually measured in percentages. It's a percentage that's relative to actual temperature and dew point temperature. And when you get critically dry like this, any fires that start are likely to spread rapidly, especially when winds are getting breezy, even gusty at times. Today, winds aren't too bad, but the next couple of days, wind speeds worsen, and we still have this dry air mass. Currently, our highs in the last 24 hours, I should say, mostly in the mid to upper 80s with a few 90s on the map. This is a shy lower than where the forecast was from the morning shows this morning. We were looking at the mid to upper 80s and 90s. We didn't have too many 90s, so slightly below where that forecast was. But at the moment, we have some temperature changes between 1 and 9 degrees warmer than 24 hours ago. So overall, it's getting hotter. By tomorrow, we're heating even more. And currently, we have mostly mid to upper 80s. There are a few low 80s on the map. There's also a few low 90s, Paulina at 91 and Warm Springs at 90 degrees. And through the rest of this evening, it's going to be a warm one. And then temperatures will cool back through the 60s and into the 50s. Some 40s are expected for lows, but most of us are going to be bottoming out in the 50s. And then by tomorrow, temperatures heat up even more, topping out in the lower to mid 90s for most of Central Oregon with a few 80s on the map. That brings us to a different forecast model. I have a few more for you that are mostly going to show precipitation, but this one really hones in on that surface temperature, and this is the 2-meter temperature and what we can expect as we go forward. Now, when it comes to tomorrow, that's going to be the hottest day out of the next 7. It's still going to be breezy for many of us through the evening. Mostly between 5 and 8 p.m. are going to be those stronger winds. But this heat is actually going to stick around for us one more day. Now, Wednesday not going to be as hot, but still 90s and 80s across Central Oregon. Still looking at these areas of smoke. But this is also when a weak front pushes through the Pacific Northwest. It's part of that low that's offshore. That low fizzles out. That energy from the low works its way through the high desert. We don't get any precipitation because it is moisture starved, but then by Thursday, a bigger dip in our temperatures, actually cooling further into the 80s. So tomorrow, the hottest day out of the next 7. By Thursday, well into the 80s, even a few 70s going to be possible with not much at all in the way of cloud cover by then, and there's just no precipitation inside through the next 7 days. So we do have a bigger cooling trend after heating up tomorrow. By Thursday and Friday, it's almost like we level out a little bit, near and a little below average for this time of the year. But then by Saturday, another weak system impacts us. At best, some sprinkles. Stronger winds are expected, and bigger cooling is in the planner for this weekend. We're actually looking at highs in the 70s with a few 80s. That puts us well below average for this time of the year. And your forecast model actually shows that we're not looking at any precipitation at all. In fact, going forward through the next couple of days, we stay very dry, and only some clouds are expected, some areas of smoke too. Most of those clouds on Wednesday, just in and out cover, no precipitation. By Friday, back to sunshine, getting closer to the 70s. So this is the GFS, this is the long-range forecast model, and it helps us understand what's happening further down the road. It's not as high of resolution, and sometimes it doesn't show any precipitation when some showers are expected, but either way, it's showing very dry conditions. And then by the time we get to Friday and Saturday, a little bit more cloud cover, but still no rain on Saturday. And then by Sunday, that was a cold front. Then by Sunday, in and out cover continues. This time next week, we're still going to be critically dry. And so when it comes to our upper level flow, this is something that we typically use to just help understand what's really going on. And it actually shows a series of lows stretched from the Gulf of Alaska down through the northern Pacific Ocean to just offshore. And those lows are going to cycle. There's a really apparent low that's going to continue to work its way closer to the coastline, and all the other lows are going to be satellite lows working their way around it. None of them really impacting us through the rest of this week. And notice we do get the dip in temperatures. We have those height falls, and that is significant because it's indicative of cooler temperatures as we go through Thursday and Friday. But watch what happens after that. Then the parent low starts to dig a little further to the south, and by the time we get to Saturday, it looks like a little bit of that energy is going to be working its way right through the high desert. Not enough to bring significant moisture to give us a lot of rain chances, but enough to cool us down once again. And then we turn our attention to another low pressure that's out over the Gulf of Alaska after that. And by early next week, that next low starts to work its way into the high desert. That's the first low that could actually give us a decent chance of rain through the next 7 days. And it's not even the best chance of rain. So between now and Thursday at 11 p.m., nada, no rain in sight. Between now and Sunday at 5 p.m., the best chance of a few sprinkles holds off until Saturday. And then after that is when we could get a few showers, but it's so far down the road, it's more of a fantasy forecast. It's more of a forecast that you would only post online if you were looking to get clicks or attention. So it's something that I'm not even putting in the 7-day planner. Meanwhile, our wind gusts at the moment are mostly up to 21 miles per hour, so not too strong. And actual wind speeds are more like 5 to 15 miles per hour. But through the rest of this evening, winds do get a little breezy at times, and then they taper off overnight, coming back down to 1 to 8 miles per hour. Through Tuesday, we're looking at 5 to 15 with gusts up to 25 expected through the afternoon and the evening. And then by the time we get to Wednesday, this is when we could have our stronger winds, but it's mostly going to be during the late afternoon getting into the evening between some of those times because those are 2-hour gaps. Now for tonight, we're looking at temperatures that are going to be bottoming out in the 50s with a few 40s out there, more areas of smoke. That smoke really fans out. In fact, I'm going to take a detour real quick. I did not have this graphic in the forecast to begin with, but we're going to go ahead and look at it anyways because I do think it's important. So far, some of that smoke is starting to work into the high desert. When we were looking at air quality conditions, it had moderate air quality through Jefferson County. By 7 o'clock, it expands a little bit more, and more reduced air quality is expected across the high desert. And then overnight, that smoke really fans out. And we are looking at the potential for some areas of poor air quality to start the day tomorrow, but each day, as wind speeds pick up, as mixing is expected through the boundary layer, we see that kind of thin out, and then more smoke settle back in overnight. So tonight, smoke spreads out, periods of poor air quality are going to be possible. By Tuesday, the hottest day out of the next 7 areas of smoke, especially in the morning, with highs in the lower to mid 90s and a few 80s expected. And then your 7-day planner shows that after peak heating tomorrow on Tuesday, we're still looking at topping out on either side of 90 degrees by Wednesday. Thursday and Friday, solidly in the 80s. Saturday and Sunday, 70s with some 80s. Saturday at this point is the best chance of rain we have through the 7-day planner, and it doesn't look good. Looks like at best maybe some sprinkles. So between now and the end of our 7-day planner, we do have cooling, and those overnight lows follow the same trend as our high temperatures, eventually coming back down to the 40s with some 30s by the time we get to this weekend. So your weather headlines for this Monday, August 21st and 24th, include smoke in the sky and we are dry. It's going to be hotter Tuesday, but cooler by Thursday, and stronger afternoon breezes are expected across the high desert. Meanwhile, right now, we do not have much hope in the way of precipitation anywhere near us. Through central Oregon, we are dry. Over Harney County, we have some light showers, as well as Lake and Malheur County. The closest thunderstorms are right along the Oregon state line with California and Nevada, and even getting further over to the east. But for the most part, those storm cells are staying pretty far away from us, and we just have these in and out clouds. That's the latest in weather. Join us tonight on Central Oregon Daily News. Our next show is at 6 o'clock. That'll be an hour-long show. I'll have a couple different weather hits, and then again at 11, we'll have the latest headlines and your most reliable forecast. See you then.